My mother yelled at my fiancée not to touch the food because she wasn't family, during a lavish dinner I paid for. I responded by canceling her $38,000 cruise and closing my wallet for good. Days later, she showed up screaming at my door. Since I was 16, I've been giving it my all. It all started when I got summer jobs helping out with basic plumbing repairs for a neighbor who had a small contracting business. For 4 years, I learned everything: residential and commercial installations, and handling 3 a.m. emergency calls when basements flooded. I saved every penny I could while living in a studio apartment so small it barely fit my bed and a mini fridge. Those years taught me to value every penny. While my high school classmates spent their money on concerts and parties, I memorized part codes and gained real-world experience. I used to spend my weekends at building supply stores, networking with vendors. 5 years ago, I took the plunge and applied for a $45,000 loan and started my own plumbing business. The first year was incredibly tough. I lived on instant noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I slept in my van between jobs to save on gas. I had barely $300 in the bank when I closed my first big business deal, a restaurant chain that needed maintenance and emergency service at all 12 of its locations. That contract changed everything. It generated a steady monthly income of $8,500, which allowed me to hire my first employee and buy better tools. Soon, word spread to other chains in the food service industry, and I ended up being the primary contact for emergency plumbing in commercial kitchens. Today I own 3 vehicles, a 250 square meter workshop, and generate approximately $180,000 annually. My partner, Santiago, handles the commercial side while I focus on residential services and emergency calls. We have 2 apprentices we're training, and I plan to purchase the building we're currently renting next year. The shop is equipped with a machine room where we manufacture custom parts. I recently invested $15,000 in a new threading machine that cuts my turnaround time in half. My personal vehicle is a fully equipped F-250 Super Duty, with everything I need to operate as a mobile office. It cost me $65,000, but I use it for work and it's tax deductible. My fiancée, Clara, is 26 and teaches 2nd grade. She's dedicated, compassionate, and truly cares about her students. She uses her own money to buy school supplies, stays late for parent-teacher meetings, and yet, she manages to get the children to learn with enthusiasm. Clara is everything my family has never been: patient, respectful, and without a trace of arrogance. We've been together for 3 years and have been living for 8 months in a 2-bedroom house I bought in a decent neighborhood. It was a foreclosed property I got for $185,000, and I invested another $40,000 to completely renovate it. I remodeled the master bathroom entirely, installing a walk-in shower with rain showerheads and body jets. If I'm going to be a plumber, at least my own bathroom had to be spectacular. Clara chose all the finishes, and I must say she has much better taste than I do. The kitchen renovation cost more than my first work vehicle, but her expression when she saw it finished was worth every penny. But something funny happens with success. When you start earning a good living, your family suddenly becomes interested in your finances. For the past 2 years, I've been paying my parents' monthly rent, $1,400. They never asked me directly, but there were always comments about how tight the budget was, about worrying about making ends meet. To avoid the drama, I set up an automatic transfer. I should have recognized the manipulation. Every month, around the 25th, my mother would call with some story: car trouble, medical expenses, house repairs. Always just enough to trigger my guilt. My father, Roberto, would join in, saying how proud he was of my progress, reminding me that family takes care of each other. Flattery disguised as emotional pressure. My mother, Maria, worked for 37 years in the vehicle registration office. She seemed to enjoy making people's lives difficult. She believes that because she was a civil servant for so long, she has the right to have an opinion on everything, from how I run my company to why Clara, according to her, isn't up to my standards. My father, retired for 4 years after working at the post office, spends his days watching cable news and complaining about the weather or prices. He's not a bad person, but he's always been completely controlled by my mother. His pension is $3,200 a month, but the expenses she generates devour it in no time. My sister, Veronica, works in corporate marketing for a healthcare company. She always speaks in business jargon, as if she were constantly in a meeting. She's married to Daniel, who works at ITI. Luckily, he's a level-headed guy. Veronica lives paycheck to paycheck, paying $2,200 a month in rent for an apartment she can't afford. Even so, she thinks she's superior because she has a college degree and wears business suits. Ever since my business took off and I started earning more than her without going into student debt, her envy has been obvious. She often makes passive-aggressive comments about how lucky I am in business or how unsustainable manual labor is in the long run. Meanwhile, she's saddled with $75,000 in student debt for a degree that doesn't even guarantee her a higher salary than my apprentices. Daniel, on the other hand, has always supported me. He works as a network administrator at a medium-sized company, earns a good salary, and has never tried to put on airs. He was one of the few who genuinely celebrated when my company took off. I also have a cousin, Gabriel, who works in construction. He's always been the most realistic one in the family. He doesn't buy into excuses and doesn't pretend everything's fine when it's not. His older brother, Bruno, is a mechanic, reserved, but he shows up when there are family gatherings. Gabriel leads a crew at a commercial contracting company. He earns well when there's work, but he knows how to save for the slow months. The real trouble started last summer when I took Clara to a family barbecue. All it took was for my mother to see her in a simple summer dress for her to give me that typical disdainful look, the same one she wore at work when someone didn't fill out a form correctly. Clara tried to be friendly, talked to her about gardening, and offered to help with the dishes. But my mother treated her as if she were trying to cut in line. All afternoon she made hurtful comments. When Clara mentioned her intention to pursue a master's degree, my mother blurted out that teachers should focus on teaching instead of collecting degrees that are useless to them. When Clara offered to bring dessert for the next family gathering, my mother replied that we already had our traditions and that there was no need for an outsider to get involved. A typical passive-aggressive comment from her, clearly designed to make Clara feel out of place without being overtly hostile. Of everyone present, Daniel was the only one who seemed to understand the tone. She made an effort to include her in conversations and even asked for her opinion on educational software her company was considering for internal training. Veronica, on the other hand, barely registered Clara's presence, too busy checking her phone and complaining about the drama at work. When my mother announced she was finally retiring after 37 years of public service, I wanted to do something special to honor her. Despite her attitude toward Clara, she was still my mother, and after so many years of putting up with difficult people in a customer service office, I felt she deserved a proper send-off. Clara and I organized a surprise dinner at a luxury waterfront restaurant, followed by a week-long Caribbean cruise. We booked the private dining room overlooking the marina for $8,200, which included a 5-course meal, an exclusive wine selection, and top-notch service. The cruise cost another $38,000, including balcony cabins, themed restaurants, spa credits, excursions in 4 ports, and good travel insurance, because I'm no fool. I spent hours researching, comparing ship layouts, reading reviews, and choosing the best cabin location. I wanted that trip to be perfect. On the night of the event, we arrived about 15 minutes late. Clara had stayed behind to help a student who was going through a difficult time due to his parents' divorce. She couldn't leave without making sure the boy was okay. She wore a navy blue dress she had chosen especially for the occasion, and she looked spectacular. The private lounge exceeded my expectations, floor-to-ceiling windows with a direct view of the dock, anchored yachts, a sunset that turned the water golden, and soft music floating in the air. Everything was meticulously arranged, linen tablecloths, proper silverware, elegant glassware. The sommelier had selected the wine pairings for each course, and the executive chef, renowned and nominated for gastronomic awards, had designed an exclusive menu using local ingredients. 14 people were already seated when we arrived. As we entered, the murmur of conversations died away as if someone had pressed a mute button. Among those present were my parents, Veronica, Gabriel, and Bruno, as well as Uncle Pedro, Aunt Linda, my cousins Raquel and Kevin, and other relatives I only usually see at weddings and funerals. Daniel stood up, shook my hand, and said, "Paul, this place is incredible. Thank you for organizing all of this for Maria's retirement. Clara apologized for the delay, explained about the student, and thanked my mother for including her in such an important event. Maria barely reacted. She simply adjusted her glasses to look at the wine list as if she were deciphering hieroglyphics. Roberto was already on what looked like his second Manhattan, judging by the mark his glass was leaving on the white tablecloth. Veronica was still engrossed in her phone, typing frantically with her perfectly manicured nails, not looking up even when Daniel tried to get her to say hello. The first course was served. The family had already started eating and were commenting on how delicious everything was. Gabriel was talking to Uncle Pedro about a construction site where they'd found a time capsule from the 1960s, while Bruno was explaining why certain car engines were better than others. Daniel, meanwhile, was chatting with my father about anecdotes from the post office, showing genuine interest. Clara bent down to pick up one of the mushrooms from the center of the table, the one closest to her. And that's when my mother showed her true colors. "Don't touch that. Those are for the family." The phrase cut through the atmosphere like a knife. Everyone fell silent. Even the waiter who was refilling water glasses in the back stopped and stared. Clara's hand froze inches from her plate. She blushed, not with anger, but with that dark hue that accompanies deep shame, the kind you feel when you're humiliated in front of everyone. Daniel was stunned. "Aunt Maria, what are you talking about? Clara is practically part of the family." But my mother glared at her, reached for the same mushroom Clara was about to grab, and put it in her mouth, still staring at her, chewing slowly, as if marking her territory. A fiancée is not a wife. And a wife is not blood-related. In this family, there are hierarchies, and some need to learn their place. Gabriel, who until that moment had been silently sipping his beer, grabbed 3 mushrooms and firmly placed them on Clara's plate, making the cutlery clink. "Ready, yes." Family privileges officially activated. Veronica finally looked up from her phone. She watched the scene, and far from intervening, she smiled with that half-smile of someone who enjoys seeing another person humiliated. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something. But no. Roberto took refuge in his Caesar salad. Uncle Pedro concentrated on the wine list as if it were a classified document. Clara whispered to me that she wasn't hungry anymore. And something inside me broke. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the wooden floor. "Clara, we're leaving right now." My mother didn't look up. She continued cutting the bread with surgical precision. "Sit down, Pablo. Don't make a scene over something so trivial. Am I the one who's embarrassed? You just humiliated my fiancé at a dinner I'm paying for with over $8,000, and you're talking to me about embarrassment?" Then he did look at me. With an expression as if I had spoken to him in another language. "You invited us to celebrate my retirement. This is my farewell dinner. It was your farewell dinner. That's all in the past. Enjoy your meal." Gabriel also stood up, dropping his napkin onto his plate. "You know what? I'm leaving too. This is completely out of line, even for this family." Daniel pushed his chair back and took Veronica's arm. "Us too. This is unacceptable." But she got away. "Daniel, sit down. Pablo is exaggerating." "No, Veronica. Your aunt just humiliated Clara for no reason. I'm not staying to see any more of this." As we left the dining room, I heard Veronica whisper to Daniel to stop exaggerating and not make a scene. The woman who raised me had just blown up a family relationship in front of 14 people, and she was still going to continue with her meal as if nothing had happened. We stood in the parking lot in silence. There were 4 of us who had left the restaurant: Clara, Gabriel, Daniel, and me. Veronica had stayed inside, probably trying to calm things down and enjoy her expensive dinner. Daniel's face was contorted with disbelief at what had just happened. He looked at me uncomfortably and said, "Lucas, I'm really sorry about what happened in there. It was completely inappropriate." Gabriel kept smoking, clearly agitated, and shaking his head. "Your mother completely lost control," he remarked. "I've witnessed family dramas before, but this was another level of cruelty." She humiliated Clara in front of everyone, at a dinner that cost you $8,000. Daniel took out his cell phone. I'm going to order a car. Veronica can fix her waves and prefers to stay and have dinner with people who think it's okay to treat others badly. That's when I remembered the cruise, a 7-day trip on a luxury ship, with premium suites with private balconies, unlimited specialty meals, spa credits, and excursions to Cozumel, Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Costa Maya. A $38,000 surprise I had saved in my email. I took out my phone and called the restaurant first. I explained that a family emergency had come up and I needed to leave. The manager was quite understanding. Sir, did your group consume any food or drinks tonight? They're probably still having appetizers, and they'll definitely finish the whole meal, I replied. In that case, we can give you a partial refund for what you didn't eat, but charges for the food served and the room reservation will apply. That's fine, just make sure you're not paying for the entire evening. When half the guests left within 20 minutes, canceling the cruise took 31 minutes. When I was finally attended to, the agent explained the policy. Since I was canceling more than 45 days in advance, I only received a $600 discount. They would refund me the other $37,400 within 10 to 14 business days. I canceled everything. The entire package. Clara looked at me in surprise. Lucas, what are you doing? Getting back in control, I replied. They want to act like you're not part of the family. Okay. So, the family events are over. Daniel's car has arrived. He shook my hand before getting in. Lucas, you did the right thing. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. Gabriel and I returned to my house with Clara. While she showered to relax, he and I ordered food and chatted about what had happened. The cruise cost $38,000, I told him. Gabriel whistled in astonishment. Maria had just ruined her trip up the hill by not controlling her arrogant attitude for a couple of hours. But the financial consequences didn't end there. The next morning I did something I should have done a long time ago. I canceled the automatic rent payment from my parents. For 2 years I'd been paying $1,400 a month without them even asking. If they thought they could treat Clara like garbage, they could sort out their own financial problems. The notifications started pouring in within hours. The restaurant bill, the canceled cruise, and now the untransferred rent created a perfect storm of financial panic. When I turned on my phone the next morning, I had 89 missed calls and 203 messages. It sounded like someone's phone in the middle of a catastrophe. At first, the messages were confused, asking about the restaurant, but they soon escalated. Lucas, the rent didn't transfer this month, is there a problem with your bank? Then came the pleading. We need that money before the 5th or they'll charge us late fees, you can send it manually. And then, the real panic, the restaurant wants $7,400 and now we don't have the rent. This is a disaster. We're going to lose the apartment. But when they found out about the cruise, the tone changed to one of entitlement and demand. Did you really cancel the cruise? That was my retirement gift. You can't just take back what you promised. The most revealing messages came from Veronica. You're being an idiot. Mom made a comment and now you're punishing the whole family. They're going to lose their home because of a tantrum. I called her around noon. Lucas, thank goodness you called. You have to send the rent to Mom and Dad today. They're desperate. Why don't you do it? What? I can't afford $1,400 a month. I have my own expenses. So I guess they'll have to figure it out on their own. You're being cruel. They raised you, they supported you, and this is how you repay them, cutting off their help over something trivial at dinner. Veronica, Mom, publicly humiliated Clara in front of everyone. If you think that's okay, go ahead. You cover their expenses. I told you I can't. You earn more than anyone else in this family. It's your responsibility. No, it isn't. I'm not their father or their boss. I helped because I wanted to, but they proved they don't deserve it. Veronica was silent for a moment. Then he responded venomously. You're ungrateful. After everything they've done for you, you abandon them because of your precious girlfriend's feelings. She's my fiancée. And this conversation is over. I hung up and blocked her number too. That afternoon, I received a call from Daniel's number. Lucas, it's Daniel. I wanted to apologize for what Veronica said last night and this morning. She's been pressuring me all morning to pay your parents' rent. She says it's a family emergency and that I have to help because you're being unreasonable. And what did you tell her? That it's not my responsibility. I never agreed to financially support his family. And I'm not going to start now. Well done, Daniel. That takes courage. He's been yelling at me for hours about family loyalty and helping out when needed. But I work hard for my money. I'm not going to pay the rent for people who can work and support themselves. During the following days, the family pressure didn't let up. Uncle Pedro called me to lecture me about my obligations to the family. Aunt Linda tried to make me feel guilty about Mom's years of service. Even some cousins she barely spoke to started commenting on how insensitive she'd been. But the most ironic thing was seeing Veronica's marriage begin to crumble under the pressure. Daniel later told me that they argued every night because she couldn't understand why her husband wouldn't resolve the family crisis with a simple check. For 3 weeks, the family atmosphere remained relatively quiet. My parents, it seemed, had found a way to resolve the rent issue, probably by cutting expenses or moving to a cheaper place. Veronica had stopped calling, and for a moment I even thought that maybe, finally, they were getting the message. Clara and I decided to take advantage of the refund for the cancelled cruise and plan our own vacation. Nothing as luxurious as what we had booked before, but a week in the Florida Keys, something we could actually afford and that we were really looking forward to. We felt we deserved it after all the family drama. The morning we left for the airport, we took a selfie at the gate with our boarding passes in hand. We were both smiling, excited to be taking our first real trip together. I uploaded the photo to social media with the message, "Heading to paradise with my favorite person." Sometimes, the best trips are the ones you plan yourself. We boarded the plane, turned off our phones, and didn't think about my family for the entire week. But when we got back and I turned on my phone, I found 147 notifications. The bomb had exploded on social media while we were out. My mother had somehow seen the post and forwarded it to the family group chat, making up a completely distorted story. I told everyone that I had stolen his retirement cruise and was now bragging about it online. Half the family actually believed that story and started attacking us. They called us selfish, ungrateful, and cruel. They went even further. Someone tracked Clara's account where she shared photos and started leaving hateful comments, accusing her of being a homewrecker. Worse still, even her work emails started receiving anonymous messages full of insults. Mom had painted a story in which I had abandoned her financially, without mentioning that I had covered all the expenses, that I cancelled the cruise after her disrespect toward Clara, and that we had paid for this new trip with our own money. Gabriel called me just as I was going through all the digital chaos. "The family is in turmoil," he told me. "Maria is saying you stole her retirement cruise and left your parents without financial support out of spite. Many people see you as a monster. Do you want me to tell the truth?" "I already did," he replied immediately. "I posted photos of the restaurant receipts with your name on them, explained what happened at the dinner, and why you cancelled everything. Half of them are backing down after seeing the facts, but the rest are still on Maria's side. They're saying Clara is a homewrecker and that you're completely manipulated." Despite all the online drama, Clara and I thoroughly enjoyed our time in the Keys. Spectacular beaches, delicious seafood, and best of all, being far away from people who think it's acceptable to manipulate you emotionally and financially. That break was exactly what we needed. We returned Sunday afternoon, exhausted from the trip and the lingering tension from everything that had happened in our absence. On Monday, Clara decided to stay home with a severe headache from the stress. I went to attend to an urgent job. A burst pipe in the basement of a house had caused a flood in a recently remodeled room. It was the kind of job that paid well, but left you soaked and covered in grime. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, I was up to my elbows in pipes when my phone rang. It was Clara. When I answered, I heard her trembling voice, barely a whisper filled with panic. "Love, please, come home now. Please." The tone of her voice chilled me to the bone. I was completely terrified. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Your mom came home. Paul, please, just come back." The call cut off. I dropped the tools and ran to the truck, leaving the house half finished and everything a mess. When I arrived, I found Clara in the kitchen, a bag of frozen corn draped over her left arm. Her hair was disheveled, out of its ponytail, her favorite blue t-shirt was ripped at the shoulder, and there were reddish marks on her neck. What on earth had happened? She had a dark bruise running from her wrist to her elbow, as if someone had grabbed and twisted her hard enough to damage the tissue. She tried to remain calm as she spoke. "Your mother showed up about an hour and a half ago. She was banging on the door and yelling about vacations and money. When I opened the door, she completely lost control. She yelled at me that I ruined her life, that I stole her pension, that I took her away from her family. She pushed me, grabbed my arm, shook me, called me manipulative, and wouldn't leave. She tried to hit me, but I dodged the blow and she ended up hitting the door frame. That's when she grabbed me by the neck and told me she was going to show me what happens to women who destroy families." "And how did you get her to leave?" Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor, heard the shouting and threatened to call the police. "That was the only thing that stopped her. As soon as she left, I called 911. 2 patrol cars arrived within 15 minutes. Officers Rodriguez and Thompson spent over an hour gathering evidence, taking photos of Clara's injuries, and recording statements from the neighbor, everything in detail. With the physical evidence and Miss Patterson's testimony, the officers said there was sufficient basis to file charges for aggravated assault, especially for the attempted strangulation. They also offered to help me obtain a restraining order. "I want both," I said. "I want her arrested and a permanent ban on her ever coming near me again." After the officers left, I called my mother. She responded immediately. "Paul, thank God," started, but I interrupted her. "You laid your hands on Clara. You came to my house and physically assaulted her." "She's lying, I never touched her. I saw the bruises. The police have the photos." "Did you call the police on your own mother?" "You're not my mother anymore. Mothers don't commit crimes against innocent people." I hung up and blocked his number. Half an hour later, Gabriel arrived with food and wine. When he saw Clara's bruises, his expression changed completely. "Maria has completely lost her mind. This is criminal. The police said they will probably arrest her tomorrow." "Good. What he did is unforgivable." And so it was. On Tuesday morning, my mother was arrested and charged with aggravated assault. The restraining order was approved on Wednesday. By Thursday, the entire extended family knew what had happened. Veronica tried to rally support for my mother, but Gabriel shared photos of Clara's injuries in the family group chat. Uncle Pedro commented that family matters should remain private, to which Gabriel responded by asking if he would feel the same way if someone hit his daughter. The biggest shock came Friday night when my father showed up at the front door. He looked like he'd aged 15 years in a week. His eyes were red, his hair was a mess, and his clothes were wrinkled. "Paul, I'm so sorry. Listen." Then she dropped the bombshell. "Your mother crossed every line. I filed for divorce yesterday." Neither Clara nor I expected such a statement, even after the police informed me of what she had done. "After 32 years of marriage, I have never felt so ashamed," my father continued, tears welling in his eyes as he looked at Clara. "I failed you both. I should have put a stop to it a long time ago." "Why didn't you?" Clara asked. "Because it was easier for me to stay silent than to deal with his outbursts." He said that seeing the photos the police showed him was what finally made him react. He realized he had lived all that time with an abusive person. But what truly made me feel justice was seeing how the social and economic consequences devastated my mother's and Veronica's lives. My mother's arrest was in the local newspaper with her mugshot on the front page. The headline read, "She's a vehicle department employee charged with aggravated assault." All of her colleagues from the past 37 years saw that article. The state pension board launched an investigation, and as a result, he lost his pension and health insurance. The criminal sentence included a $5,000 fine, 200 hours of community service cleaning parks and roads, and mandatory attendance at anger management classes twice a week for 6 months. But the real revenge came with the civil lawsuit. I hired a personal injury lawyer who took the case on a contingency fee basis. We filed charges for assault, intentional emotional distress, medical expenses, and lost wages for the days Clara was out of work. My mother had to hire a lawyer who charged $400 an hour just to defend herself. The trial was relentless. We had photographic evidence, witness testimonies, police reports, and medical documentation confirming Clara's injuries. My mother's lawyer tried to portray the case as a simple family dispute, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury awarded us $47,000 in compensation plus $18,000 in legal fees. My mother had to sell her luxury SUV to cover part of the debt. She also liquidated her retirement fund, losing money due to the early withdrawal penalty. My father's lawyer showed no mercy during the property division proceedings. He obtained alimony, half the value of the house, a portion of her retirement plan, and kept his own savings intact. The situation left my mother completely destitute. 6 months later, he was living in a small, one-room apartment in a rough neighborhood, working part-time at a large store, restocking shelves. No government agency wanted to hire someone with a criminal record. He lost all contact with his co-workers, and except for Veronica, the rest of the family sided with us. And Veronica's downfall was even more satisfying, though slower. Constant arguments with Daniel, over money and family loyalties, eroded their marriage for months. She demanded he provide financial support for our parents and accused him of being insensitive and selfish when he refused. Daniel later confessed to me that Veronica came home from work every day furious about the family situation, demanding that he solve the problems with money that wasn't his responsibility. She compared him to other husbands and threatened to leave if he didn't start contributing financially. The breaking point came when Veronica began staying late at work under the pretext of having important projects. The stories didn't add up, and Daniel became suspicious. 8 months after the incident at the restaurant, he called me with unexpected news. "I want you to hear it from me," he said. "I'm going to divorce Veronica." "What happened?" "I caught her with someone else. She's been in a relationship with a colleague from her marketing department for 4 months. When I confronted her with the evidence, she blamed me for not supporting her during the family conflict. Daniel initiated divorce proceedings. The best part is that they had an unbreakable prenuptial agreement. He had demanded it before the marriage, and she signed it without a second thought. Now, that meant she was leaving the marriage with nothing but her personal belongings and a mountain of credit card debt. Veronica pleaded, saying she would end the affair and go to therapy, but Daniel had already made up his mind. He couldn't stay with someone who insulted him for months while cheating on him. With no options and no money to become independent, Veronica ended up moving in with our mother at the home of Aunt Patricia, our mother's younger sister. 2 resentful women, crammed into a small 2-bedroom apartment. Both of us were ruined, blaming the world for our misfortunes. Meanwhile, my life kept getting better. Clara and I got married. My father walked her down the aisle. The ceremony was intimate, held in a winery outside the city, followed by a reception for friends and family who truly supported us. Gabriel was my best man, and his speech brought both tears and laughter. Clara is pregnant, and my father couldn't be more excited about becoming a grandfather. He's been in therapy for over a year, working through the years of complicity with my mother's abusive behavior. He's calmer than ever. My company is thriving. Last year we bought the building, hired 3 more people, and I'm considering opening a second location on the other side of town. Santiago now handles most of the day-to-day operations, which gives me the freedom to focus on expanding the business. Because of the restraining order, my mother can't attend any family events. She wasn't at our wedding, she won't be able to meet her grandson, and she won't be welcome at any celebrations. She distanced herself from her family because she couldn't treat Clara with even a modicum of respect at a dinner that I paid for, by the way. Veronica, after everything that happened, found herself trapped in a life that wasn't the one she had imagined. She lost her husband, the stability she valued so much, and the respect of many people who had once surrounded her. She sought refuge with her mother at Aunt Patricia's house, but what they shared wasn't companionship or comfort, but rather frustration and resentment. Both seemed more interested in finding someone to blame than in taking responsibility. Day after day, according to some family members, they repeated the same complaints, blaming the system, their families, the world, but never themselves. While they were stuck, Clara and I were beginning a new chapter. We got married surrounded by people who truly wanted our happiness. Gabriel, as my best friend and cousin, gave an unforgettable speech. Clara's pregnancy filled everyone with joy, especially my father, who is now striving to make up for lost time and be the grandfather he never had the chance to be. My company continues to grow. The purchase of the building was just the beginning. We will soon be opening a second location. Santiago has proven to be a reliable and capable partner, allowing me to dedicate myself fully to developing the business. There was no need to yell, humiliate, or seek direct revenge. I simply let life take its course, and let everyone face the consequences of their actions. Today, those who acted with malice live trapped by their own decisions. And we, on the other hand, move forward with our heads held high, building a home and a future on firm and clean foundations. I didn't have to destroy anyone. They only took care of that. I just decided not to keep cleaning up the mess that others created.